As the governor of South Dakota, there's a few things when I watched when you were leading the state, it was so impressive. I think you were the state that was the most open. At first, you got criticized a lot, and then you ended up getting a lot of credit for making the right moves. A lot of other states kind of followed your lead. I remember there was a story about being offered $300 a week of unemployment they wanted to send, and you said, no, we don't want to take the payment. You know, we're doing okay. Our unemployment is low. What was your processing as you were going through a season that none of us had gone through before?
Yeah, well, my background is that I'm a business person, a farmer and rancher who took over our family businesses after the death of my dad. I became the general manager at age 22. So making decisions for me in South Dakota was just common sense, looking at the facts on the ground and making the best decisions for people around me. When I got elected to be governor, our state kind of was dying. People were moving out of South Dakota. Our economy was drying up. Jobs were drying up. Our kids were leaving the state to go get an education, and then they tended to stay in another state to get a job and pursue the future. So I ran on making sure that we were open for business. In fact, that was my state of the state title before COVID ever hit South Dakota or hit our country, was that South Dakota was open for business. So when that came forward and we were sitting and seeing that virus situation, I brought a few of my advisors together, my general counsel, some of my lieutenant governor and some of my staff, and just said, tell me about what happens if we shut down our businesses, if we shut down our schools, and talked about the constitutional rights that people have and that businesses have over a state, over the federal government. And every decision that we made in South Dakota was based on the Constitution, and that was where our true foundation was going to be. In fact, even in COVID, we were the only state that never once closed businesses. We never mandated that anybody stay home or wear masks. We kept life as normal. We said that we were going to give people as much information as possible and then let them use personal responsibility to take care of themselves and their families, and that we would get through it together. I talked about how I didn't have any right to go shut down a business in South Dakota, that would be a taking, it would be considered a taking of their business if they were to be hurt economically by that. And then that business owner would have the opportunity to come back and to sue the state of South Dakota for that taking. And I didn't want to put us in that situation where we would be taking an unconstitutional action against our residents and then putting the state at a liability as far as making them whole again. So every decision we made that I made was pretty matter of fact, although the rest of the world just rained fire down on my head. I mean, I got every night, Patrick,
I remember
if you
that.
remember, just destroyed on the national news networks. They said I was killing people. In fact, even the federal government, when they called me, told me I would have over 300,000 South Dakotans die if I didn't shut down my state, that they would, and was telling me that was going to be the consequences of it. So even Saturday Night Live had their opening skit was me being a vampire, killing people and making decisions that were not going to be good, and we're going to be demonized by all those Elizabeth Warren and other Rachel Maddow. Those folks were coming after me every day, but we did the right thing. And we had a lower loss of life than most states. Our businesses thrived. We grew like crazy. People moved to our state by the thousands, and we really benefited from embracing our freedom. I think that a lot of times when you see a crisis or you see a tough situation, people may be quick to judge what leaders are deciding, but it may take a while for them to really realize that by trusting the citizens that our country will thrive. And that's really what we need to do here as well. Trust in our Constitution, trust in our laws, and make sure we enforce them so that we can reap the benefits of that.
And what that was is for the rest of us, we saw you on the national scale because it was very impressive how you handled yourself with the media when the attacks were coming. And they said, wait a minute, she's got very strong leadership qualities. How did this person become the way she is? And obviously that led to the job that you have today, which comes with a lot of different responsibility. But I want to stay with South Dakota as well because it's important for the audience to know how many successes you had there. One of the concerns that you hear how China, a lot of private companies in China tied to the government buy a lot of land in America, some 277,000 acres of land, up to 300,000 acres. We'll see that number in South Dakota being one where, I don't know what the number is, but it's 40 million plus acres, which is dedicated to that. How did you handle China trying to come into South Dakota? I know you guys have certain laws and things you put in place that they were not too happy about. How did you manage the relationship with China in regards to agriculture?
Yeah, we were very aggressive against China, recognizing, so I have businesses in farming and ranching. So I had watched for decades as China came in and tried to control our food supply. They bought up our chemical companies in the United States. They bought our fertilizer companies, and we became reliant on China to make sure we could even grow our crops, stole our genetics and our IP when it came to our agricultural economy and inputs. And then as I watched them come in and start to buy up land across the country, I recognized that the country that controls our food supply will control us, and that is China's goal every day, is to control the United States of America. And the instant that they would be able to control that entire supply chain system for our food is when they would control us. So we banned China from being able to own farmland in South Dakota. I got aggressive on them as far as our intellectual property and technology as well. And then I even was the first governor to ban TikTok, and from them to being able to be used on our state devices to run our government, or being able to infiltrate our systems. Now, President Trump has been a very aggressive in TikTok and making sure that it's a much safer system and entity for us to utilize. But being the first one to go out and to take those actions, I think gives other people an opportunity to really examine the issue, to look at it, and the security of our food supply chain. And how vulnerable we are to China, I think really started to come to light during that point in time when we were banning it from owning our land. We saw that many other states had already given up a lot of their land to China, and we weren't willing to do that in South Dakota.
Were there other governors that were calling you saying, how are you managing it, for them to be able to duplicate some of your policies?
I think so. We did the state, we had the law as well that first banned, men from being able to play in girls' sports, and that bill and that legislation was used in over a dozen other states after that. That language that would withstand a challenge in the court system, that could be give us case law that would be helpful in making sure we could protect it into the future. So many times I learned during COVID, because we had phone calls and conference calls with governors every single day. What are you doing? What decisions are you making? On what basis are you doing that? I realized that even a small state like South Dakota, by being a leader and making the right decisions, influences the other states around you, other leaders around you. And so that's one of the things that President Trump has been doing for us. And you've seen it across the world, as he makes bold decisions to protect his country and to embrace freedom, he's influencing other countries and other world leaders as well. We're seeing it happen in Europe and with Italy and the UK with some of their decisions. We're seeing it in Central and South America with leaders that are very pro-Trump, and that means that they're recognizing how the United States does better when someone stands up and is strong for law and order, for secure borders, and for a strong economy. That really makes a big difference, not just here in our country, but around the world.
If you love this country, show it. Lead with pride in the Valuetainment USA collection. Designed for freedom thinkers, built for everyday leaders. Red, white, blue. Purpose. Wear what you believe in. Valuetainment USA.
If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.